Wasteland Reaper. Hello, Wasteland Reaper. When you guys did MythBusters, did you have the idea, do the experiment, film the story, and then do the blueprint room? Can you walk us through a typical shoot? You are absolutely right. The overture is always written last in a musical. I will tell you, the end of my TED Talk begins with, I hate sentences like that. I'm sorry I said that, but you know, yeah. So I did a TED Talk, and the last line of the TED Talk is, spoiler alert, the costumes are how we recognize each other. I will tell you that line occurred to me waiting to go out on stage for that talk. Yeah, the best part usually comes super last. So a typical MythBusters story would start with an idea that one of us gets in an email or a viral video someone watches. Then at the MythBusters shooting schedule was in about 12 to 14 week blocks. So we would shoot for 12 to 14 weeks, knock out, I can't remember, 6 episodes, something like that. And then we would take a couple of weeks off and then come back to it. And each new shooting block started with a week of breaking stories. That is, taking the stories that have been showing up, that are on our list, stories that we couldn't get to do last season, some new stuff that came down the pike. And then we'd sit as a crew and break those stories. What are the obvious ways to attack this? What are the fun ways? What are some ideas? Everyone's sharing their point of view and kind of wrapping around the story. Then we get into film. So based on that story meeting, we end up with both an outline of how we think the story will go, and we end up with a sort of production outline of how we think we'll film that story. Neither of these things is true. Neither of these things will actually hold. The narrative is going to end up being totally different, and so will the producing schedule of it. But once we're in the sluice, we were a really good crew at following the experiment, not the narrative. Yeah, the experiments always took precedence over the filming, which was amazing that we were able to build a structure to achieve that. So as we're filming, it may take, you know, some entire episodes could be filmed in a single day. Others took more than 2 or 3 years to reach fruition. On average, it's about a week and a half per episode, something like that, about 10 shooting days, 9 shooting days per episode. And then, yes, once the episode is cut, then we go into the blueprint room. And, you know, the shooting style of MythBusters was so extemporaneous. It was so, you know, what we're thinking, what's happening on the fly as we're going, which is a very, you know, once you get comfortable with your crew and the cameras and the work that you're doing, it's a very easy way for the hosts to shoot because it's super organic. In contrast, blueprint days were really, really mentally exhausting because we had lines we had to hit. The show had been cut. We're going to call forward to some things in that narrative in the blueprint. So there are lines to memorize. There's stories to build. There's stakes to set up. There's visual gags. But more than that, it took multiple takes to get these right. And at the end of a day of blueprints, all 5 of us hosts, everyone who was a host who showed up in a blueprint found the blueprint days really, really tiring. It is hard to bring the energy that television requires. I like to joke that YouTube is me plus like 4 or 5%, and television is me plus like 12%. You've got to push hard on television to break out of that little screen. The format of MythBusters, the format of Tested is a lot more intimate, and thus I can attenuate that loudness. I can modulate it. And then we would watch a rough cut. So after the blueprints were shot, they would go back to Australia, they'd cut it into the episode, and we would watch a rough cut. And then we'd make notes on the rough cut. I don't know that we ever... I'll tell you something funny that would happen in the blueprints is sometimes the entire structure of the myth would change when we got into the blueprint. Like, you can, oh my God, I'm going to need an example of this, but you can frame a story as a positive or a negative, right? Like, so sometimes we'd be like, oh, the myth isn't that Oh, I am not going to be able to come up with an example of this category, which is a terrible way to tell a story. But we would get into the blueprint room and be like, the myth is that a person can't do this. And then it'll turn out that the myth is that they can. And then the whole episode works better if we shoot the myth from the other vantage point. Sometimes that new vantage point would show up in the blueprint room as we were talking about it. There were twice we did blueprints in other languages. We did one for German television, RTL 2, and we did it in Spanish. And in Spanish, we are the hunters of myth. Los cazadores de mitos. Every time I see that Mexican tequila, cazadores, I think of us, the MythBusters. Leather Elf says, cardboard is an amazing builder material. Some of my first armor pieces were made out of cardboard. Jamie and you did an episode where you were both firing paintballs at each other. I believe that's the quick draw episode where we're dressed as, I was dressed as Clint Eastwood from Fistful of Dollars. And, oh, right, Leather Elf brings up that my belly button took a pounding. And then they want to know, how long after the episode did it take for you to realize you could have put something there to protect yourself? Right, like the stone that Clint Eastwood uses at the end of A Few Dollars More, because the guy always aims for the heart. When I worked full-time in special effects model making for the movies, specifically for the movies, sometimes we would build stuff specifically to be blown up. We did a lot of this on episode 1 with the pod racers, because all of the pod race crashes in episode 1 are practical. Even today, physics simulations aren't necessarily going to give you what you're going to get out of just hurling a giant thing into the sand and seeing what happens, as evidenced by the making of Fury Road. We would build stuff to be blown up, and then it would be a really common question of like, does it bother you to spend all that time making something really beautiful and perfect and intricate and looking really correct and then to blow it up? And the answer is no. It's not upsetting because you are putting your artifice into something for the purpose of blowing it up. Like, you just want the shot to work. And so with the pod race explosions, they filled these hollow models that they made with all manner of stuff to fly away, little bits of styrofoam and other things, and they weighted them differently to get different kinds of debris like casting out from the explosion. It's like a lot of amazing ingenuity went into explosions for episode 1 and movies like Pearl Harbor and the Pirates of the Caribbean films. So like building stuff to be blown up is its own art, and thus, because you're servicing that, it's not a problem for the model maker to be like, oh, I'm wasting my time. No one feels like that. Don't get me wrong, you're almost always in special effects. You're almost always working on a bad movie. That's the rule with special effects. You're always working on a bad movie. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because as the host, but also one of the producers of MythBusters, while it was unpleasant, just to set the scene, Jamie and I are doing quick draw stories about drawing first, Clint Eastwood stuff, and yeah, so lots of like standing and, you know, tumbleweeds and then drawing and firing. And the thing is that Jamie kept on hitting me in the same spot. And then it became like he was enjoying hitting me in the same spot, and I got a big bruise. Now that was unpleasant and it hurt. But at the same time, I'm the producer. I know that this, like, Jamie getting a little giggly about causing me pain, solid gold from a producing perspective. I can take it. I can totally absorb that pain because I know what its end is. I know to what end it is, right? Which is, I'm gonna tell a fun story. And if this ends up being bringing a little more character involvement into the story, then the story has more impact. So for the same reason that I don't mind building stuff to be blown up, I did not mind taking the regular pain of Jamie's accurate paintball shots for the quick draw episode. Thank you for watching. I wanted to talk to you about Tested membership. The Tested members are a key community that we find really, really remarkable. That's very separate from Tested and from YouTube. The Tested members, they buy each other memberships during our live streams. So if you're wondering whether to become a member, watch one of our live streams and someone may just give you one. It is hard to overestimate how much the Tested members actually make possible on this channel. They give us a lot of wiggle room. They give us a huge amount of feedback.
That's a member right now.
Thank you so much for enjoying your membership. Description for everything you need to know. And for all the members out there, thank you, thank you, thank you.